we had. We've got no understanding of how we lived before colonization. You see, well, certainly I would say for West Indian people or blacks in the West, we have no understanding of how we lived together and cooperated amongst each other before European intervention. So our whole relationships with each other at the moment is based on, it's all confined within a Western understanding. You see, when you had great empires like the Ashanti Empire, or you had an empire in the south, in Zimbabwe, you had great Zimbabwe empires, you had massive empires in the 1500s before European colonization. And it's how did all these people work together? Who created the army? Who created the food? People weren't motivated by money. How did people cooperate? And a lot of these empires have, since the European colonization, have been burnt to the ground. So we have no idea, to a certain extent, of how we cooperated amongst ourselves before European colonization. And so this is the starving of sustenance. And what they're saying is that these colonized African students become titillated with the palate of certain African intellectuals. Their palate becomes titillated, that they become alienated from their own immediate society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Michael, for sharing your opinion. Brother Tabang, I see your hands is up. Can you unmute yourself, introduce yourself?
All right, thank you. Do you see my video? You see me?
I'm not able to see your video because I'm sharing the video here.
Okay, all right. My understanding is simple. Whoever wants to subjugate you will not teach you about yourself. They will teach you about themselves, so you continue worshiping them. That's how white supremacy works. And it's important that they continue to project their supremacy through making the African student learn about them or learn about the European civilization and neglect their own. It's the same. We grew up in a system where we never learned about Lumumba. We only learned about Lumumba later on. We only learned about Sankara later on. They will never allow us to learn about those because they were freedom fighters. They were our heroes. And the minute we started seeing ourselves with them, then we would have been awakened. We would have been awakened much earlier had we been taught that in our schools. But no, it's in the best interest of the colonizer or whoever is subjugating to make sure you don't get to learn about yourself. It's unfortunate, but that is how it works. And it's the same in this country where I live. I'm here in England at the moment. They don't teach about the colonial empire. What they do is they glorify what the empire did. They never teach you a balanced history. So all of this, their future generations, they won't know anything about what the empire did. They still think what the empire did was beautiful and glorious. And it was good that the empire ruled 1/6 of the world. That's all they know. They don't know all the evils that the empire did and visited to the people in their empire. It's like that. If you want to colonize people, you colonize the mindset. Then the people start to colonize themselves. And I think this is what I'm reading from what Nkrumah was saying. Nkrumah knew about this even before he became a president. He knew this when he chose to go to school in America instead of coming here to England, because he could see that everyone else was going to their erstwhile colonizer. And I think that's what set him apart. All the others, they came here and they were told, you have to stay within the sphere of influence of the Commonwealth. The French, they went to Paris, or the Congolese, they went to Belgium. And when you get there, you don't get education, you get indoctrination. You're told what to learn, and you stay within that narrow confines of colonial education. And unfortunately, this is where the problem is. But with Nkrumah, he went to America from the onset. That helped him, because at that time, it was a time of civil rights liberation struggles in America. At that time, the black universities in America were already active, and they could teach people about themselves, about their identities, about what makes an education. And again, he himself, don't forget his life. He wasn't there just to learn. He was there, he worked, he hustled, he knew everything. And then that's the reason when he came back, he wanted freedom now. He wanted freedom right away because he knew that the plan that the British had with a staggered plan of decolonization meant they wanted to make sure Ghana remained within their sphere of influence. By the time they gave power to Ghana, they would have done something else. And unfortunately, that's what they did with Ghana. They retained the army. They retained some institutions within the Commonwealth when Ghana got independence. And when Nkrumah got a call for help from Lumumba in the Congo and sent the Ghanaian forces who went to Congo, they had a certain General Alexander who was a British general here. And to him, Lumumba was a communist. And he came there, he went to work with the CIA. So in a way, they undermined what Nkrumah was trying to do in Congo. In short, it's more or less the same. If everything is a design. Right? Thank you, guys.
Yes. Could I say something?
Yes, Brother Mike.
Yes, because it's following on from what I said last week. You have to understand who is training your army, because the leaders are indoctrinated from the West. So when you think you have an institution that is working within your country, it's not. They're working for the British or they're working for the CIA. You have to understand a lot of these military officers are trained in the West. And it's not just military training or tactical training, it's political training also, since their mindset is trained in to be pro-West rather than supporting their own country. It's very important that you understand the training of your military within your own respective countries.
Thank you, Brother Michael, for that rejoinder. Brother Rinumi, I'll come to you, Brother Tabang, after Rinumi shares his opinion, but I'll come back to you, Brother Tabang. Brother Rinumi, hope you can see my screen. I've tried to look for the book so that we can be able even to go back to check on who are these colonial students in the third category that Nkrumah is talking about. And now with the page, you can go back and I can share with you the third category. Can you see this page, Brother Rinumi, and you can share your opinion, your thinking? Comrade Rinumi. Okay, Makama? Comrade Makama? Okay, Comrade Tabang, you can proceed as I'll get back to them.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to collaborate more with what Comrade Michael just said. With Ghana, as I said, the control of the army remained with the British Army. Just like with the Congo, when the command remained with the Belgian Army, it meant it was never even in the local interest. It was never ever given to the local officers. Okay, so they continued to indoctrinate them. Alexander was working with Kotoka in Congo. Kotoka actually stopped Lumumba from using the radio when Lumumba had been toppled at that time. And again, don't forget, Nkrumah sent the Ghanaian army to go there to support Lumumba, to be neutral, to support Lumumba. But they went there and they followed Alexander's example. Kotoka is a senior most Ghanaian officer in the British, in the Ghanaian army, in Congo, in the UN contingent. It meant he followed everything that Alexander told him. And when it was time for them to topple Nkrumah in 1966, it was Kotoka again who did that, because he had been indoctrinated to follow the British and to actually continue to enforce the British interests in Ghana. And in a way, they enforced or make sure that the American interests were protected in the Congo instead of the Africans' interests or the Congolese interests or Ghanaian interests. So Kamwe Michael is absolutely correct. It's all of that. But what we see here in the end, we are told that, we had corrupt, inept politicians at independence. What they don't tell us is that they were never fully trained properly to lead. They were indoctrinated to remain within the colonial sphere in which they had been before. So we never got any independence. We only got independence in flag and national anthems. Apart from that, everything remained as it was from Berlin Conference in 1884, 85, up until now. We still see ourselves as more Anglophone or Francophone than African. Why do you think we have borders right now? It's the same thing, okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Comrade Tabang. Let me check if other comrades have an opinion, then we will proceed to the next paragraph. We are reading the first paragraph. We are sharing our thinking in the first paragraph, but generally, having read the 3 paragraphs, you have now a better, clear understanding on what you're discussing. That's why some of us can even bring in the second paragraph in the discussion. But I thought it was very important for us to read all those paragraphs so that it can build your more, it can build up on your concept as you share with us. Brother Inumi, can you hear me now? Comrade Inumi? Or Comrade Makama? Comrade Simon Chibi, can you try to connect to your microphone? Comrade Makama?
Yes, comrade. So, although now I'm having a problem seeing the book on the screen, so it's somehow glittering. So I don't know where the problem is. Okay, but the book reflects on mainly the philosophies. So I think it's stating how understanding the past helps in understanding the present. So as we know that politics is in nature is science. So science on its own requires analysis of past events and analysis of present events. So those are the things we mostly need to understand. So having a scientific tool of analysis is important to mostly the political arena. So in order to colonize a nation, you must first colonize the mind. So that is what is stated here as the Europeans do. So they teach us their own history so that we may find their own history as a major portion or has more important or superior than ours. It is how the turning point is being brought in our lives, that we start shifting from our normal African way of living to the European way of living. Why? Because the things we are being told are those that are associated with the European way of living, the European culture. So that is how modern colonization is, as the book is stating. So I think I can end there for now.
Thank you, Comrade Makama. Comrade Inumi? Comrade Inumi, okay. I'll try to see if Comrade Inumi will join us or able to speak. So to my side, Nkrumah is talking about the ability of a history being wrapped or warped. History can be distorted. We know very well that the history of Africa has been distorted. People who have been writing about Africa has actually distorted the history of Africa to fit their interest. Sometimes you find that most of books containing African history are written by the whites. And those books the whites write about African history is not for the interest of Africa, but for their own interest. And that's why Nkrumah says there's possibility of such history being warped or being either distorted or confused. Philosophy is also the same. But he says that the study of philosophy of the past should lead us to study the modern theories. And he goes ahead to say that the colonized African student whose roots in his own society are systematically starved and substance is introduced to Greek and Roman history. As I've said, that the history can be distorted. So most of our students who either went out by that time of Nkrumah, those who went to study abroad, what Nkrumah was calling them the liberals, those who actually were taught about philosophy of the West, and they were taken through the process and they were told how Africa was negative. They said that we are like monkeys. When they were acting the movie of Tarzan, the Tarzan movie, how Tarzan was moving from tree to tree, they wanted to justify that Africans are living like monkeys. They gave us the movie of even the gorilla, the Hong Kong, just to try to diminish who we are, you see? So when in Africa, some of them are being introduced to this history, the history that actually distort our history. You see, when de Klerk talks about the destruction of Black civilization, he talks about actually what happened to our civilization. They decided to demean our history and made it more simple and more useless. And the students who went abroad, or students who are being subjected to these studies, even to date, students who go through modern education find our traditional ways as being useless. And they decide to leave our norms and our spiritualities to embrace the civilized way that they're being introduced through education. And they find that they are more comfortable in that. And that's why he says that some of these students were introduced to Greek and Roman history, the cradle of mankind in Europe, and those other things. And is actually forgetting the history of Africa. So in this paragraph, he's clearly talking about the history and how our history was used actually to brainwash our people and our students. How they were introduced to histories that actually distorted who we are. And even if you check the education today, the curriculum today across the continent and across the globe, it actually tried to diminish the traditional understanding and culture. And our manners and our values are being eroded and distorted with this education we're going through. We no longer embrace the age system, respect, humanity, morality, honesty, and those are the virtues that were existing in traditional ways. Today do not exist. People talk of universalism, is a global citizen, I'm a global citizen, it's globalization. And we want to pick these narratives and these tendencies at the expense of our history. And this is actually distorting who we are. And in a long period of time, we are losing ourselves with our roots. And the moment we lose ourselves with our roots and our history, as Marcus Garvey say, is like a loose tree. And therefore, that's why the generation that is coming up of the youth and the younger generations are actually trying not to invest much to learn of their history, but so much of learning IT, technology, yes, the new whatever. We embrace so many things and we forgot about our history. And this is the way we are being brainwashed and taken away. So this is my contribution in the first paragraph. And I'd like to see if Comrade Renumi can share his contribution. If he's not able, then we'll move to share contribution in the second paragraph. Or if there's anybody who have a rejoinder, he can also share. Today we are at least less, so we can have more time to discuss more and more on the paragraph shared above. Comrade Renumi, for the last time, are you able to share anything? Can you hear us? Okay. Comrade Renumi still may be having some problem to hear us. Yes, comrade, we can hear you.
Hello. Yeah, I'm having I'm having problem with the network. Yeah, I'm having problem with the network.
Can you try to contribute?
Give me some challenge. Then I'm also having another call on my other line, so I'm trying to divide. So briefly, yeah, I get in the foundation that the challenges we're having today in realizing an authentic African personality far back history and the philosophy of the Greek and Roman Empire that were imposed on our education. I don't know. So some people in the diaspora wouldn't know how they cannot imagine how damaged European values. Today we are not only it's not only our history that has been distorted. It's unfortunate that we may never have a pristine African personality again. It's unfortunate we might never realize that, because every available dynamics for that is been demonized. So we are today a floating mad that does not have. Later on, Nkrumah is talking about matter, something that has matter.
Hello, comrade. We are losing you. So I know you have a network problem, but we will allow you to share anytime you will be back with us.
Unfortunately, African personality.
Hello, comrade. Okay.
Come like a man.
We can't hear you very well, so try to look for better network, and then you'll get back to us.
Matter today. We do not.
Okay, the comrade, I'll request that you work on your network. I think he has also been, people are struggling today with the network. The comrade from Zimbabwe are struggling. Comrades from South Africa are out. I'm getting texts from Nigeria. Some comrades are out of the meeting. I think network is becoming a problem in Africa that we must solve, because it's so funny that we need to have a reliable network in Africa. If it is an app that is bringing problems, I think we need to solve this once and for all. So maybe having shared the first paragraph, unless somebody has any rejoin on the first paragraph, we'd like to look for this second paragraph where Nkrumah talk of the third category of colonial students. And I'd like to go back to share that script of this third category of colonial students, so that we can know who are they. For those who are not in our previous class, they can be able to see who are these third categories of colonial students, as Nkrumah was sharing. Can you see my screen? Can you see the reading?
Yes, I can see it. Yes.
There's this paragraph talks of finally, there were the vast numbers of ordinary Africans. These are the third categories of the colonial students. I want us to read this category, then I'll take you back to the second paragraph so that we can now contribute our thinking. So Nkrumah was talking of three categories of students. He referred to the first category that is in the paragraph above, the first paragraph, as liberal students. And he said these are students who are armed with universalities. They're universal students, and they call them liberal students. Then the second category are the people say that a few colonial students gain access from the second paragraph, gained access to metropolitan universities almost as a right on account of their social standing. Instead of considering culture as a gift and a pleasure, the intellectual who emerged therefrom now saw it as a personal distinction and privilege. He might have suffered mean persecution at the hands of colonialists, but hardly everything in the flesh. From his wobbly pedestal, he indulged in the history of sociology of his country, and thereby managed to preserve some measure of positive involvement with the national process. It must, however, be obvious that the degree of national consciousness attained by him was not of such an order as to permit his full grasp of the law of historical development or of the thoroughgoing nature of struggle to be waged if national independence was to be won. This is the second category of student, and Nkrumah called them the conservatives. Now, the third category of student Nkrumah is talking in the second paragraph that I'm going to take you back after this, is this part where he says, finally. So he said that finally there were the vast numbers of ordinary Africans who, animated by a lively national conscience, sought knowledge as an instrument of national emancipation and integrity. This is not to say that these Africans overlooked the purely cultural value of their studies, but in order that their cultural acquisition should be valuable, they needed to be capable of appreciating it as free men. And I was one of this number. So this is the third category Nkrumah is talking about, and he was one of them. So I'll take us back to the page we are reading now, the second paragraph, so that now we can have a discussion and people can share their thinking on this third category Nkrumah is talking about here. So we will start by sharing our thinking on this category. And I'll start by, let me start by Comrade Tabang, Coco Tacho. Kindly read again critically the second paragraph and maybe share your thinking on this second paragraph.
So, Comrade Tigbin,
Yes.
It's important to realize where we have all been with the fight between capitalism and socialism, right? Socialism has been labeled as the evil, dark form of economic ideology, and capitalism has been labeled as the freedom, like the best ideology to aspire for. Hence, the works of Marx and Engels have been touched in the West. Whoever was given those, they were given them as a buy, as a side buy, not as something for people to immerse in those works and come up with a rightful ideology for African emancipation. They knew that Africans, the way we are socialists traditionally. We are that. And the system works for us in that way. But unfortunately, why would they give us something which will emancipate us? Why would they give us something which will give us the power to overthrow them? They wouldn't give us that. So to perpetuate colonialism, they wouldn't give us the teaching of Marx and Engels, even though they knew as well that these were the right system for the African environment. Okay? You will find that most of the people who have a hype about capitalism doesn't even work for them. They're not even capitalists. They are workers. But because they've been told and brainwashed to think that capitalism is the right system to go, they will fight you. They will fight you if you said you are a socialist. They will fight you and call you a red communist. What? In America, lots of people didn't even know what a communist is. But people were up in arms in that. So to me, that's what I'm reading there. That system should have helped, but people were not given the right education, the right philosophical grounding, so they could understand that and be able to use it for the emancipation and liberation of Africa. So to me, that's a missed opportunity, big time. So I don't know if you want me to limit myself to just a second paragraph, or did you want me to cover any of the other two?
You've actually covered the second paragraph in your thinking, unless you feel that there's something you've not shared yet. But according to what you're trying to explain, I think when you talk of capitalism and socialism, it's purely on Marx and Engels. So I think you've covered the second paragraph.
Absolutely, it's the second paragraph. I thought unless you were saying cover first or second, I didn't get which one you were interested in.
No, we are in second paragraph, so we will also share our thinking on the second paragraph. Then, if time allows us, we might move to the third paragraph because we are few of us here.
Okay, I'll wait for the next speaker then, and I'll come back.
Brother Michael.
Hello, hi, yes. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Would
Michael,
you
can
like
hear
me
you.
to comment on the second paragraph?
Yes, sir.
Kindly.
Okay, 1 minute, please. Right, yes, okay, I can start now. I think the part that struck me is where I learned to see philosophical systems in the context of the social milieu which produced them, you see. So I think that's the essence of this book, is that you've got to understand that philosophy has an application to the way in which we live. In order to solve the problems that you've got to use philosophy. It's not just a matter of learning phrasing and meaning of words. So for what they're saying is that philosophy is related to understanding your social milieu or your social environment. And then he says to learn to look for social contention. So when he's talking about that is people's dissatisfaction with society, when you talk about social contention, and then you have to use philosophy to overcome and understand this social contention. That's what struck me about it. And he's saying that there are that you can fight against colonialism by understanding the works of Marx and Engels, even though he does at some stage in the book, he does say that Engels was a racist. I can't find it now, but he did accuse him of being that. But however, Nkrumah was objective enough that he thought there were ideas that you could use. See, even people say Marx was also a racist, you see. But however, Nkrumah is of the opinion, because he does say that he certainly said that Engels was, that he could use some of those ideas in his fight against colonialism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Michael. Comrade Makama. Comrade Makama. Comrade Rinumi, do you have now a better network for you to share?
I'm not so sure, but I will try. Hello, yeah. Quickly on that paragraph, I think that paragraph is like the chair rightly connected it with the third category of students we read about in the introduction. This is saying that the best category of students that can emancipate Africa are the conscious students that go into their education conscious of themselves, conscious of their environment, conscious of the dynamics of the global issues, and then who are radical enough in their view to project their Africanness, who are proud enough to be who they are, not who they or some people wanted them to be, not the kind of program personality that European education and European brainwashing has made us to aspire to, but to go back to our roots, to get connected to our being from inside of us, to be who we are supposed to be. So if we have all this consciousness, if we come across all these funny proposition, historiographic ratings of Europeans, how they are trying to distort facts, or how they are trying to glorify themselves, one will just smile at their hypocrisy and then go about picking out what is necessary to be learned and throw away most of their garbages into their faces, or behave in a way that will tell them, they'll make them know that I see through all your veils, I see through all the shenanigans of your civilization, trying to put down my own civilization, and I'm ready to square up with you, given the opportunity. So this is the kind of this is kind of students we should have to not students that are so liberal that cannot differentiate their right from left. So when they picking all these toxic information, all these written down, all these information that denigrates our ancestry, that denigrates us, then we become a confused human being that do not want to be African that we are, and that can never be European that we are brainwashed that we are. So this is what this I think this paragraph is saying, that Nkrumah and a few ordinary students who are conscious enough because before they came in full contact with all this colonialism and the imperialistic values in the education, in the brainwashing that our schooling have made of us, can actually go through this valley and still come out a person of their own. Yeah, that's my take.
Thank you for sharing your thinking. Today we've been having almost bad day because many people have been texting me that they have been having network problems. Some have been out of our meeting because of some network issues, and they've been dropping and coming in. I think you have seen that it's because of some network issues where they are, some in Kenya, some in Zimbabwe, some in Nigeria. But we will continue and we'll proceed with our sharing. And I want to thank everybody. I see Brother Kwame has joined us, and we do welcome him. And I'll go ahead and share what also I think in this second paragraph. As Nkrumah was talking about the third category of colonial students, he said, as I've shared in the previous chapter, what we read in the previous paragraph, that this category was students who went to seek knowledge as an instrument or as a tool for national emancipation and integrity. And Nkrumah also referred to this third category of students as free men, people who could still think freely and apply whatever they have learned neutrally and freely, and not actually indoctrinated with the ideas and the knowledge that are being given. You see in the previous paragraph, the first paragraph, they are saying that some of these students were introduced to other history that were actually contrary to their African history, either the Greek history and Roman history, and at the same time, history was actually interfered with. So I think, as Nkrumah says here, that when he, during his stay in America, he tried to look at this concept of Marx, either the socialism in Marx aspect. And you see, being that Marx aspect of socialism was of the peasant or the working class, and he felt that because during colonialism, to my thinking, is that during colonialism, most of Africans were the working class, they were the peasants. And therefore, the philosophy or the theory of Marx could actually make some sense to Nkrumah during that time. That if Africans were to embrace, as them being peasants, were to embrace this philosophy, then they could use it actually to overthrow colonialism, because now they were the majority, they were the peasants who were serving the colonialists. So I think this is where it's come from. And he says that he learned also to see philosophical system in the context of social milieu, which produced them. If you check the context of Marxism, it was working well for the working class of those other sides, not in Africa actually. But he tried to understand it very well that even though the Marxism was there for either overthrowing colonialism, but to him, he could go beyond that and think of what was the background for that philosophy. And he therefore said that I therefore learned to look for social connotation in philosophical systems. And I think out of studying Marxism and getting to understand Marxism, he had to come up with a proper philosophy and ideology that could fit to our context as Africans and the situations we are going through. And this is what I think to myself, he came up with consciousness, which was now an advanced philosophy and ideology that could fit to our context. So he had to understand realities and what was the backgrounds of such philosophy. But I think at the time he was saying Marx and Engels' work could be the best tool to overthrow colonialism. I think he was basing in mind base that majority of Africans by that time were the peasants. So this is my understanding and my thinking in regards to this paragraph. And because Brother Kwame is here, I'll allow him to share something. We are only around 4 or 5 of us, so we are few. So Brother Kwame, you're welcome, and you're free to share with us anything. Sorry, I know you've been having some challenges traveling home, but you're welcome. Brother Kwame, I don't know if you can hear us.
It's a lot. There's a lot of this announcement going on. So give me a moment.
Okay, I'll give.
So I'm in the train, and basically it's a lot of announcements to turn on. So I'm sorry. I'll have to be switching it on and off. Otherwise, you'll get a lot of train announcements. So um, I appreciate there are only 5 of us, but it's okay. Now, the previous chapter we read was introduction. This chapter is philosophy in retrospect. So the question we need to ask ourselves as we read is, what is this chapter intending to tell us? You know, what is this chapter about?
Welcome aboard the Southern
Sorry.
You can proceed, Brother Kwame.
So what is this chapter intending to tell us? And that is what we need to keep our minds on. So briefly, when you look at something in retrospect, it means that you are standing at a particular location, which in our case is now. But in Nkrumah's time, this is around before 1964. And he's president of Ghana, and because he was president in 1960, and he has a philosophy club in Flagstaff House, which is the president's residence. And this club has a few people in it, and they meet regularly and discuss philosophy. And the philosophy they are discussing is a philosophy for the transformation of Africa in terms of our total unity, liberation, and development. So philosophy in retrospect is saying basically, if we look back, so when you stand at a location, you look back, hence retrospect, you look back at the past. And so that is what this chapter is about. You will see later that it will conclude on what or how we see philosophy, or how we should see philosophy. I need to stress for us to understand that sometimes it is not what you even personally believe or like or want, but it is what you need to do in order to achieve an objective. So let me use a very simple example that we are all familiar with. If you want to cook rice, then you have to have fire. If you want to fry rice, then you have to have oil to fry it. So if you don't like fire, if you are some person who say, oh, I don't really like fire, then you cannot cook rice, because to cook rice you need a fire. It's a very simple example I want to use. So what I'm saying is that let us not beware that the philosophy that we need in order to live, and when we say materialism, we don't mean it in the everyday sense. That's not what we mean. We mean philosophical materialism, which is a position that the universe is matter, or the universe, the primary force, or the primary phenomenon in whole nature is matter. That is where we begin. And so it doesn't matter whether you believe you're a spiritual person, you go to church, you go to mosque, you can do all of that. It doesn't matter. The point is that if you want to transform Africa, then you need to be in a position where you can do that. And so this chapter is going to introduce us to philosophy in retrospect. It would look at all the philosophers and all the philosophies, and it will come to a conclusion. So what you're about to read, or what you started reading, is very interesting. I met a gentleman in Ghana who did not really like Nkrumah, and he said to me, "Oh, but Nkrumah did not build on past philosophy when he wrote Conscious Consciousness." So then I asked him, if that is the case, what is philosophy in retrospect about? Because philosophy in retrospect looks at past philosophy and then looks at what has been achieved and then takes it forward. So what you have is people who haven't read the book and who have not read the book themselves and who have come to conclusions or have had conclusions made for them. I met a gentleman in London some years ago, and he was saying that consciousness was this, it's that, is that. So I said to him, "Can you show me where in the book it says what you are saying?" And he said he didn't know, but that he was told by someone. So let us be open-minded. So that is what I would say for now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame, for that. I think is quite.
Yeah, sorry, I said that's. Did you hear what I said, Pigeon?
Yes, you say thank you. So I had all that you say.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So we still have some 28
Pigeon, I can't hear you properly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but not. Yeah, but go on.
I'm saying we still have some 28 minutes to go through the first paragraph, the second paragraph.
Comrade Pigbin, you are struggling a bit.
I heard the brother who just spoke clearer than Pigeon.
Yes, Pigbin is also struggling.
We've been experiencing problems all night, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
You can hear me.
So is it Pigeon? Is it your line then?
He was
coming clear
kicked
now.
out of the meeting earlier on this evening. He was kicked out and had to come back in. So I don't really know what's going on.
Okay, can you?
He's probably having challenges.
Oh, we can hear you now. Thank
Yes,
you. We can hear
yes,
you. Come in.
Okay, thank you. I was saying that I was telling Brother Kwame that we've been going through the first paragraph.
Yeah, but your sound is very low, Pigeon. Your sound is very, very low.
I'm having some problems. So we've gone through the first paragraph and the second paragraph. We are about to go through the third paragraph.
Before we do that, can I interject on the second paragraph, please?
Yes, kindly, based on also the Brother Kwame, you can.
Yes, I think Brother Kwame covered the whole, chapter, talking about philosophy in retrospect, which makes sense. This second paragraph is more of Guma is saying, I looked at Marx and Engels and said, I can understand where their philosophies came from. But
could everybody else go on mute, please, and let the speaker continue? Please, could everybody else go on mute? Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Please continue, speaker.
Thank you, comrade. Yeah, I was saying, if you read that paragraph there, which Pickman has shared, it is saying, it's impossible to read the works of Marx and Engels as desiccated abstract philosophies, having no bearing on our colonial situation. So what he saw was that these philosophies were taught, but they were never really taught in the context of our environment, which, as I said earlier in my first presentation, that we as Africans, we espouse Ubuntu, we espouse collectivism, we espouse putting a man at the center of everything we do. Okay, but unfortunately, because the colonialists wanted us to embrace their own system, which protects their interest at the expense of ours. They will never ever give us education in that. Hence, the desiccated part there. It happened that they were taught in several other settings, but they were never really encouraged because we knew what had happened, what would happen if we espoused that. So I recommend that comrades look at the Economics of Colonialism by Professor Richard Wolff. Professor Richard Wolff explains there how colonialism, capitalism, imperialism are all one. They are all connected. Slavery is even a product of that, is part of that. So they will never give you this because they knew you will emancipate your mind. So hence why it will have to be desiccated. Nothing with relation to the society in which we lived is best the way it is, dry as it is, just a drive-by. It's just a drive-by. It's what they teach you. I did economics in college, and it was never really encouraged. And that is what, when colonialism is working at its best, is when you are colonizing yourself. When you are self-colonizing, then that's when colonialism is working at its best. And that is what they did. They tried to make sure that they can protect capitalism by all means, with the media, with a warped history, with everything which gave capitalism in a better light and socialism in a very bad light. It meant we can never really have a sense of our own, a deeper sense of how Marx and Engels' philosophy applied to an African setting. It applied to our collectivism setting, our Ubuntu setting, where we put the men, we put the women, we put the children at the center of everything we did. But because they had to protect the capitalist, a monopolist, a white monopolist capitalist, at the expense of colonialism, then all of those important things, they had to undersell it.
Thank you. Thank you, comrade, for sharing that. Is there any other?
Can I make the point? When you read any philosophy, you can read it in various ways. And so, to add to what Brother Coco has said, when you read Marx, or if you like, Marxist philosophy, it is possible for you to read it and not see it as something you can apply. And that applies to any philosophy. So, but in Nkrumah's experience, he came to the conclusion, because remember, Nkrumah was a philosophy student as well. So you notice that he said, I learned, very important. He said, I learned. You see, he said, I learned to, let me just read that sentence. I learned to see philosophical systems in the context of the social milieu which produced them. I therefore learned to look for social contention in philosophical systems. Now, that is not the way in which Western philosophy was being taught to colonial students. And so it is something that he learned himself. And that is something that we need to learn, to look for contention. There are many examples. I'll pause there for now, but I just wanted to point out that the word desiccated means dry. So when something is dry, it means it has no life. It's not lively. It doesn't apply to life. It is dead, if you like. And it's possible to read philosophy like that, you see. And this class is an attempt to prevent consensusism itself from being a desiccated philosophy. We here are trying to bring it alive, to make it a living thing, So yeah, thank you. That's what I wanted to say. My train has been diverted again, so I will have to fall out, I'm afraid. So I'll see you all on Saturday. Thank you.
But thank you very much for that intervention. Thank you, comrade.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. We'll catch up later. Oh, we are having 10 minutes. And therefore, I'll request that we share our thinking in the last paragraph, but what time will allow us? We will catch up properly in the next class, starting from the last paragraph, which is the third paragraph. But allow me a request any of us here to reread the third paragraph. Brother Coco, can you reread that third paragraph as you also share what you think about it?
All right, let's read it then. It is, of course, possible to see the history of philosophy in diverse ways, each way of seeing it being, in fact, an illumination of the type of problem dealt with in this branch of human thought. It is possible, for instance, to look upon philosophy as a series of abstract systems. When philosophy is so seen, even moral philosophers, with a regrettable coyness, say that their preoccupation has nothing to do with life. They say that their concern is not to name moral principles or to improve anybody's character, but narrowly to elucidate the meaning of terms used in ethical discourse and to determine the status of moral principles and rules as regards the obligation which they impose upon us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to maybe share what I also think first of all in this paragraph. That as of course, Brother Kwame has said, that it is possible to look for philosophy and rest in many ways. You can go back and look at the history of Africa in the way you want it. You might want to look at that history based on something you want. It informs your intention to go back to the history. If you want to find a fault in somebody, you can do that. It's possible if you decide to look at the fault. Looking at history, as he's saying, that as a desiccated abstract is what you're avoiding for, of course, this conscious in class. So there are so many ways you can look at history. There are so many ways you can look at Africa. You can look at Africa as a failed state, a failed continent, or a continent with a potential. You can look at Africa as maybe not able to unite or to be liberated. But at the same time, you can look at Africa as being able to unite based on how you want to see it. And they say that each way of seeing it being, in fact, an illumination of the type of problem dealt with in that branch of either human rights or human thoughts. Marxism was trying to address something. Capitalism was also informed by addressing something. So we need also to see what are we addressing. That's why Ubuntu is coming in, consciousness is here, because they are based on what problems are we going through. So when Marxism came with this peasant class or the working class, they knew the problem the working class were going through. And he says, it is possible, for instance, to look upon the philosophy as a series of abstract systems. When philosophy is so seen, even moral philosophers with regrettable coyness say that their preoccupation has nothing to do with life. So it's based on what aspect do you want to look the philosophy on, which angle, and what informs you. So we should not read philosophy in isolation, but we must go beyond to see what was the foundation of such philosophy and what problems are they trying to address, or what problems are they trying to actually cure. And we now can be able to identify which philosophy can work for us and at what time. This is what I think is being described here. Brother Michael, what do you think?
Yes, you summed it up very well. Yes, the thing is, I just like to say you can either see philosophy, there's two ways of looking at it essentially. You can see it as an abstract system, or you can see it in philosophy in terms of social contention. So that means there is some sort of disharmony within society where you have human beings. So there's two ways. You can either look at it as an abstract way and just look at definitions and terms, and as you said, and not actually look at it as a way of transforming society. So there's two ways of looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Michael. Brother Inumi? Brother Inumi, are you able to share your thinking? I know you're having network problem. I don't know if you are able, but yes, Brother Coco.
Yes, brother. It has arrived to the point where I'm out of my depth, but I like it because I'm out of my comfort zone. I have never studied philosophy in my life before, but my understanding here is that the philosophers who came up with some of these philosophies will want to claim that they had nothing to do with the morality being suggested using this, or some of the concepts which people had on about these concepts. But they are more into a discourse. They are more interested in the discourse about that. They don't want hard and fast on their philosophies. But as you rightly said, Comrade Pickman, whenever we study philosophy, we need to see whether it's applicable to the social arena in which we are studying it in. Africa is Africa. Africa needs help. And if Africa needs help, it has to be a relevant system. It has to be a relevant philosophy, not the philosophy which was developed for the European setting, which we are taking in total and trying to implement it in Africa. We have to think beyond that. We have to think, they can say whatever they came up with was not relevant to Africa, but really, if it works, it works. Or what we can do is to take it, adapt it to our setting. And that's what real education is. Education is not going to school and just memorizing all of this. Is knowing where to apply them. Is knowing how to think critically and know what the right solutions are for the problems you have. Africa has lots of problems, and we need to indeed go back and see what Nkrumah has been telling us. Nkrumah never dies. So with these philosophies, with this consciousness, with the awakening which Nkrumah wants in us, we need to lead the way. We need to illuminate the way for others to follow. Is that important? And
Yes.
I listened to that audio. There's an audio which was shared of a guy who was absolutely discrediting all the Pan-Africanists, harming them with one brush, including Nkrumah, including Gave, including everyone, saying they never had values, they never had philosophies, they never had an ideology to follow. It's just that they think by uniting Africa, we will succeed. Nkrumah here has the awakening. This is consciousness is about awakening of an African, seeing the possibilities which we can see in all the philosophies which are out there and apply them to our environment. Thank you.
Could I say something briefly? The brother said he was out of his depth. I don't think you are, with the greatest of respect, because you seem to be studying philosophy without actually realizing that you were. Because philosophy is about the theory and study of guiding principles of behavior. And that's what you have just explained to us. So I think you have been a philosopher with
Comrade Michael, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
You muted yourself.
That's right. I finished speaking, so I muted myself because I didn't want to dominate the conversation. But what I'm saying is that the brother has been actually studying philosophy and exercising philosophical thought for a very long time. So I can't see why he should be out of his depth. Yeah.
You flatter me. You flatter me, my brother, but I'll take that.
Yes. Well, but the way you've explained everything, if you look at the definition of philosophy, that's what you've just done.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you so much, comrades. And I think Comrade Renumi has not been able to contribute actively because of his network. And I do apologize. So many people have had network problems today. But we do end our class at this particular moment at 20 hours. Is it 20 or 21? 21 hours, which is 11 p.m. in Kenyan time or East African time. And therefore, we will end it here and we will catch up on next Thursday from this last paragraph as we build up the next paragraphs that will be following. This is what we do in our class every day. We read paragraphs, probably one or two. We share our thinking, independent thinking, then we build each other based on explanations and understandings. We come to, the moment you share your thinking, you even build your thinking and your consciousness. The moment you try to share it, the moment you get a concept and you challenge that text, you build your understanding and your thinking. So this is what we do every Thursday. We read this book every Thursday. And welcome, Brother Coco. We're looking forward to having great time and great moments with you. And many members who have left today due to network issues will join us. On Saturday, we will always meet on Saturday, the same hours.
What time
but
on Saturday?
On Saturday, we meet the same hours, 1900 GMT. But what to do on Saturdays, we discuss purely on Africa unification. We decided to dedicate that Saturday on the concept of African unification, basing our argument on all books of Nkrumah from Class Struggle, Africa Unite, Neocolonialism, and even Consciousnism. So it's an open class. Saturdays we discuss about totally African unification, the possibility, the challenges, and the advantages, and what do we have to do if Africa have to unite fully, because this is one of the things that Nkrumah is pushing for in this Consciousnm book. So you are also invited so that we can share together.
Okay, but I'll see if with family stuff. But you know what? I am committed to Nkrumah's stream. Nkrumah is one of the brilliant minds we have had in Africa, and we have been blessed to have Nkrumah as a disciple of David. So with the two of them, if we can bring them to life or bring their ideas to life, I think it's a least we can do to give them credit for what they've done, what they have given us, the pride of who we are.
Okay, thank you very much. I will be ending. Yeah, I'll be ending there.
But Madam Michael, where are you based before he ends the call?
I'm living in London.